Hi, folks. Hello. Hi. Thank you all for joining. And sorry to interrupt. We'll have plenty of time to chit-chat after. My name is Priya, Head of Adult Services here at Forbes. So grateful that you all have made it in person or via the live stream. Hello, live stream folks. To see our readers and writers live reading for February. For those of you in the room, if you need a restroom or a water fountain, it is across the gallery into the Arts and Music Department and hang a left. And your closest exits will be through the gallery to the right, probably the same way you came up. We're here in the Coolidge Presidential Library and Museum, so if you have not been here before, please do come back during daylight hours, and we'll be happy to show you around. And with that, let's get started. So tonight we have Gabriel Bump and Nathaniel Pinkham. Hello. They'll do some readings and then have some time to chat and share about their craft and get to know each other, and also take questions from you all. Gabriel Bump grew up in South Shore, Chicago. His debut novel, Everywhere You Don't Belong, was a New York Times Notable Book of 2020 and has won the Ernest J. Gaines Award for Literary Excellence, the Great Lakes Colleges Association New Writers Award for Fiction, the Heartland Booksellers Award for Fiction, and the Black Caucus of the American Library Association's first Novelist Award. That's a lot. It's amazing. His second novel, The New Naturals, was a Washington Post, Boston Globe, and New York Times Notable Book of 2023. His third novel is Forthcoming from Algonquin. He teaches for the UMass-Amherst MFA for poets and writers, his alma mater. And we'll hear from Nate Pinkham, who is a writer from New England. He studies at the MFA for poets and writers at UMass-Amherst, where he's currently a candidate in prose. His work has appeared in Sanjoko Magazine, Jabberwocky, and Honeysuckle Magazine, and he lives here in Northampton, Mass. So with that, I'll pass it on to Gabriel. Come on up. Thanks for being here.
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah. Well, thanks, Priya. Yeah, I often have to do this. I think I got it. Good. All right. So I think I'll go first, and I'm just going to. Well, first, thanks for braving the cold. You know, it's nice to see friendly faces. Technically supposed to be at home with my baby on paternity leave. I guess I'm contractually obliged to be there, but it snuck away. So I'm just going to read a short section from my forthcoming book, I guess coming out in November. And I just finished doing several kind of intense rounds of edits for the last couple months. So I'm kind of sick of this book already. So that's why I only want to read for a little bit. But I'm excited. It's different than my previous two. A lot of it's about kind of fatherhood and inheritance, how to kind of be an adult person in the world, and seriously about people just trying their best. So I think it's always good to keep in mind that we're just human, and it's usually our parents' faults for most of the things that are wrong with us. So it's kind of what's... Oh, sorry, Nate, are your parents? hey, so you've done a really good job. And mine are fine. Okay. So yeah, this is from Don't Stop Snowing. I'm trying to think any background here. This is the narrator is just describing the relationship between his parents. And this little section is just describing their relationship. It becomes clear, but he is the child of a biracial relationship, and it's just kind of describing how his parents appeared together. So I think that's it, and then we'll just talk more about the book and stuff, so I'll stop rambling. After the initial shock of my mother, my father's parents grew to appreciate her, unlike any of the other disasters my father brought on himself, in both love and life. She was black, and they cared a little about that, yes, from the south side of Chicago, and they had heard stories about that place, the dangers, the mystery. What would the neighbors think when she came to visit? Still, look at her. Beautiful. Pam Grier, they thought. And a stable professional. Different from them, sure. Still, kind. And for reasons inaccessible to them, she loved their son. Maybe this serious woman could get their son to take his life seriously, stop messing around with these small colleges and nonsense books. There was nothing inherently wrong with Irish literature and modernism. Still, what was wrong with John Steinbeck? What was wrong with writing a book people wanted to read? And his parents were academics. Years later, when I was nervous about meeting Pidge's parents, Pidge is our narrator's ex-wife, we were not academics, but normal people with jobs related. Pidge's parents, who were not academics, but normal people with jobs related to tourism and fishing. My mother told me about their first Thanksgiving, a year after my parents met. My mother hosted them at her 4-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park, close to Lake Michigan. Her mother arrived first, drove up from South Shore, helped in the kitchen. My parents drove over from Iowa. My mother made up the guest bedroom, brought new sheets, a new quilt, a new rug, was nervous about these people, was nervous about my father. From what she told me, introductions went smooth. I'm Nina, my mother's mom said. I'm Tom, my father's dad said, shook her hand, didn't know if he should hug her. I'm Debbie, my father's mother said, hugged Nina. They moved from the living room to the kitchen, looked out on the balcony, saw my father, couldn't hide their disgust with their son, his laziness, smoking and leaning against a banister while his girlfriend and her mother did all the cooking. Their years of failed parenting shone in sharp relief. They felt a horrible urge to physically punish him, to go back in time and spank him for skipping school, lying about stealing the lawnmower, accusing the dog of eating his homework. Excuse me, Tom said, walked out, closed the door behind him without slamming, went nose to nose with my father, took War and Peace from his hands, Whisper yelled at him. My mother remembered Debbie joining her at the counter, helped cut carrots without saying a word. Tom tried to drag my father inside. My father wouldn't budge. Tom came back in red-faced. Can I help? Tom asked. Come set the table, Nina said. Turkey is almost done. I'm sorry about him, Debbie said, after Tom and Nina left. She spoke loud enough for my father to hear. My mother appreciated her shame. She had gotten used to ignoring or excusing much of my father's antisocial behavior, justify the disconnect from reality as beyond his control. To hear his mother and father throughout the evening apologize for and then chastise their son made my mother feel better. She wondered if that day marked their last as a couple. She was already falling out of love with him. His parents' disapproval removed the charm from his childish tendencies. Yes, my mother thought. Go wash your hands and change your clothes. Get that smell off of you. Grow up, Tom said, when my father spilled beer on himself, seconds after they sat down. Nina put a hand on Tom's shoulder, calmed him down. Nina, Debbie said, you must be so proud of your daughter. I can't claim credit, Nina said. She did it all herself. My mother regretted, right then, not praising Nina for instilling manners and hard work into her personality. She regretted, in general, not publicly appreciating her mother more often. And, Nina said, you must be proud of your son. We wanted daughters, Tom said, like your daughter. That was our dream, Debbie said. God had other plans for us, Tom said. And we made do, Debbie said. All of these books, Tom said. Angry now, looking around the messy apartment. Have you been to his apartment, Debbie asked. Books everywhere. It's a mess. What's he going to do? Tom asked. Start a bookstore? Him, Debbie asked, run a business? You don't have to do this, Tom said, turned to my mother. You don't need him to start a family, Debbie said. You have options, Tom said. You're smart, you're beautiful. You look like Pam Grier, Debbie said. Has anyone told you that? He can hear you, my mother said. What do I care, Tom asked. What is he going to do about it? Debbie asked. My father kept his head close to his plate, this calm and disconnect, as my mother remembered, made her fall back in love with him. She felt a desire to protect him from these mean people, keep him safe, guide him. He wasn't hurting anybody. He wasn't saying anything. He could have helped more at dinner, sure. He could have changed into a nice shirt. He could start a bookstore, my mother said, if he wanted. My father looked up at her. He's a nice man, Nina said. He can quit smoking, my mother said. Go ahead, Nina said. Tell me about the book you're reading. Not again, Tom said. It's not my favorite book, my father said. I only read it every year so I can get to the comment. There's a scene where one of the characters is experiencing an intense emotional awakening. He's experiencing love. And well, he finds himself standing outside looking up, and there it goes, the comet. You have the cosmos at play. You have Napoleon's advance in the background. The book is War and Peace. Still, the best part of the book, all those hundreds of pages of people talking and battles, even Napoleon shows up. And the moment that keeps pulling me back is a guy talking about love and looking up at the sky. Not even for that long. Only a page, barely. There's only one moment better in literature, I think. Maybe two. Molly's soliloquy in Ulysses or Anna's chapter at the end of Finnegan's Wake. I love Tolstoy, but I only read him once a year. Joyce, I can read him every day. Please, Tom said, no more Joyce. And that's it. That's all in there. And here's Nate. Yeah.
Damn, Gabe, you're tall. Okay, hold on. Is there a way to lower it? This is going to have to do. Okay, cool. Hi, you can hear me? Amazing, great. I'm always nervous before I start reading, but the difference is this time I know everyone here. So I had a joke that I wrote down and planned to say to break the tension, but but I'm going to do it anyways. But anyway, so reading a bit from my novel in progress. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you are aware of it. And then this is a chapter starring a character called Morris. So it starts with a he, that you would note if you were reading it that's Morris. So even though I've practiced reading this about many times at this point, I still get nervous, still get tics, and at least I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of my family and friends if I do it wrong. So, yeah. And then also, just embarrass Gabe a little. He said on the way, oh yeah, I'm gonna only read for about 10, but you can do the full 20 if you want. So we're gonna do the full 20. So you guys, hang tight. He looked on to that. Hey, you can hear me? Cool. He looked on to that afternoon sun that hung upon the cerulean sky, and when it changed, Morris is suicidal. He looked on to that afternoon sun that hung upon the cerulean sky, and when it changed none, resting as it always had, he opened the door, and with his one hand free across the knob, he gazed upon his home with eyes in search, gaze moving soft across what he called his own. The litter, the filth, brown bottles everywhere, liquids long since drained. There were things, but there was no life. He placed down the cardboard box that once held objects used for work that now served nothing at all. The table soon cluttered again with papered garbage. He stopped. He stared about his house, waste unremoved from the floor, cluttered not so much in filth, but in the absence of what used to be, all having come and went like the darkness that attends the sinking sun. This was all his life was and would ever be. As he stood amongst the discarded matter, inhaling so that all which was dust and dirt might fill the gaps within his lungs, all held in flesh until that too proved its limits, threatening to burst where it held for even a moment longer, and still he clung. Then he exhaled. That's it. Enough. Out the door, he wandered alone down the hillside toward where the bus stop stood, and waited for some time as clouds gathered above. And when the bus came across the horizon, calling with its dieseled wheeze, it pulled in front of Morris with doors open. He took his seat. The vehicle roared again. Around him were strangers who talked amongst themselves, faces of aging skin welded onto sunken eyes, shoulders bent in ways most unpleasant, the thin hair that comes from being tied as much as from time's passing, that withered stink that sailed upon the breath like all those lives half-lived, much too like our own. In front of Morris sat two men, older than he, loud in their conversation that it could have only been meant for themselves. One of the men, bigger and older on account of his gut and hair's faded hue, spoke of something for which its context was not known, voice rasped and withered. "It's in the paper," the older man said, scratching just below his chin. "Say what you want, Dave, but you can't deny it's in the paper." The other man flinched none, sliding his hand down his face. "They can print what they like," Dave said. "That doesn't make it more than words. You remember what they talked about, the streetlight on Pleasant? 40-minute backup on a good ski weekend. What I'm saying is traffic's bad. Traffic's been bad. Don't even get me started on the snow. So the news writes that the articles, and folks start talking, and then all you can hear from people is that it's the end of the world. The end of the world? Really? I'm not going to sit here and say that the traffic wasn't bad, but come on now. That's not news, Raymond. That's just selling papers." The older man looked at the other with puzzled face, as though struggling to parse the words brought before him. He leaned back, spine straightening. "But didn't they put that second light up," he said. "Didn't that traffic go away?" "I never said it didn't," Dave said. "But it was something. You make it seem like it was nothing." "I didn't say it was nothing, man. I'm saying that it wasn't the way you made it out to be, with the hysterics and whatnot. So you think they're making this shit up?" "That's not what I'm saying. I'm only saying that they have to sell papers." The older man leaned forward again. "But like this," he said. "Not a chance. How could they write about this if it ain't nothing but God's honest truth?" Dave threw up his hands. "I don't know. Why does anyone say anything these days?" he said. "I'm not saying it's nothing. I'm just not saying it's anything." He tapped the paper with the back of his wrinkled hand. "But you ever seen one?" Dave said. "I don't know a single person who's seen one. How can you believe something that nobody's ever seen?" Raymond sighed. "What's it going to take? Does it have to be your home too before—" "That's not what I'm saying, man. I'm only saying—" The two men continued to talk amongst themselves as Morris turned his head out the window. The hills that rose like green waves across the horizon, the view of the river slowly shadowed by the encroaching buildings that seemed as ancient as the earth itself. The bus pulled into town, and the driver called out, "Peterborough." Morris climbed off the bus, and when his soles rested atop the mud, the bus rolled on. Around him was a crowd. They walked with names half known, faces downturned and bodies in haste, moving in jilted packs by the dozens, passing in and out of the many shops half hold of their wares like a leech upon the damned. Hardly was there a building unturned. The windows of the country store picked clean of all they carried, each bar of soap and forgotten cheese stuffed into bags of discolored wool. The other sellers of Main Street just as fleeced, for there was no luxury unneeded. All was for grabs, from those who carved animal statues to the cheap clothing that rested upon the mannequin, all consumed under so many a passing hand. And as Morris made his way through the town toward where the margins lay, buildings flattened into strip malls, the roads no less abused than the ones traveled upon just prior. As he climbed the slopes of the street, voices grew only louder. What fate befell the center befell all. People seethed from within each commercial door, the throng thickest from out the supermarket gates, its lines ill-maintained, uncoiled round the parking lot so that all cars sprawled out like the shipwrecked after storm, metal carts left overturned as folks ran out with their bags overstuffed, the fallen goods snatched quickly, a panic in people's postures so thick it hung about the air itself. As he approached his destination, a fight broke out. A woman slung her fist at a man whose bearded face took the knuckle without grace. A child with bleeding lip on the ground and tears, each family member escalating still. The air grew loud with the approaching sirens, and Morris walked inside the hardware store. Behind a counter covered in fasteners and tools sat the shopkeeper, a man with peppered beard and posture slouched. As Morris approached, raised his head not an inch, nose buried in that day's paper, so absorbed was he in the news of others. Morris cleared his throat. Working hard or hardly working? The man tilted his head up, and with eyes saw the being who stood before him. They widened. Jesus, Morris, is that you? Hey there, Jim. How long's it been? A year. Longer, I reckon. Who can say, though? There's a time when it felt like you were always coming here. Every other weekend. Little things. I mean, shit. You bought enough nails to build a castle and then some. Made me think you lived hardly any place at all until I saw that wife of yours. Kid, too. About the only thing that made me believe you were human. Well, Morris said, then stopped. I remember that because it wasn't long after I stumbled past your place. A repair job, if I remember correctly. Only knew it was yours because I saw you on that front lawn with the wife and kid. Little boy looked just like you. The same eyes and all. Seemed like a good kid. How the hell are they doing anyways? He must be twice as tall as when I last saw him. A moment passed. I wouldn't know, Morris said. The air flew around them in arcs as Jim gazed at him steady. That bad? I'd rather not talk about it. Shopkeeper nodded, put down his paper. How can I help, he said. Some of the usuals? I think we still have some of those 4Ds and 6Ds in the back, but maybe you'd be better served by something larger. Never thought much of the smaller ones. I don't need... Larger's better, especially for a home. Really can't be too safe nowadays. See the way people are acting outside? Like animals. Haven't stormed this place yet, though I doubt that'll last forever. I was looking for maybe some 16Ds. No, 20s. 20s ought to do you some good. Well, with everything going on. We just ran out, but if you put it on order, I could get to you and buy... Where do you keep your rope? Morris said. The shopkeeper tilted his head. Rope? That's right. He paused a moment and gestured toward the store's back. We charge by the yard. In the far corner sat large columns covered in colored fibers that climbed the ceiling, and as Morris approached, he saw the many textured spools whose ends hung above the floor without meeting. He shifted from one rope to another and ran his finger along the many cables, the bumps and boils churning along the coiled cotton like a language that goes unheard. Some were heavy, some were not. He raised a strand within his hand, then another, feeling how they scratched his skin. But the pain mattered none, only what came next. He continued on like this until the last rope left his hand. The shopkeeper walked over. What are you looking to do? He said. He gestured towards the rope Morris last held. This one's for boats. Good nylon. Doesn't sell well in a landlocked state such as ours, but there are enough lakes to justify carrying some. You going fishing or something? I don't know how to fish, Morris said. The shopkeeper nodded, grabbing hold of the rope. Well, it'll work as a good dock line, he said. Hold you down through the worst of weather. I don't own a boat. Jim stared at Morris. Could you tell me what you're hoping for? Might serve better to know what you were after. There came a whining from the fan above. Morris gestured towards another coil. What's this one for? He said. The shopkeeper glanced at Morris again before reaching toward the rope. Standard cotton fiber. It's nothing special, but it'll do about anything. Should hold most any weight. Of course, it depends on the weight. Keep that in mind. Morris pointed. Can I touch it? The fan continued through the air as it had before, the air shuffling around the store in mighty chops, each gust landing on the men's faces, beating upon the skin until Jim could take it no more. With his fingernails, he scratched. If you tell me what you need it for, I'd like to hold it, Morris said. The shopkeeper looked at Morris, then passed him the rope. Coarse, each fiber stuck against his skin, the same as needles. Morris nodded. This'll do, he said. That's the cheap stuff, the shopkeeper said. Just about what you'd expect it to. Mind you, there's always better. Maybe I could talk you into this'll do. Jim looked to Morris, then the rope, then Morris again. All right, he said. I'll ring you up front. And then there's a little pause as time jumps ahead. Morris sat at the bus stop. He gazed into that distant hill, the sun sinking low atop the tree lines, where its sphere grazing just above the mountain peak, where once Main Street had been awash with noise, and now held a silence that seemed little of this world. The crowd was gone, and on the street corner stood more officers than he had seen before. Two were in conversation with each other, paying little mind to anyone but themselves. They only raised their head when a pedestrian passed too close, deep suspicion on their faces, hands held about their belts until the walker passed without much trouble. Morris watched for some time, the sun sinking slow, when he felt a tap upon his shoulder. Is this seat taken? The man said, not waiting for an answer as he claimed the space next to Morris. So nice to meet a kind soul in times such as these. Don't mention it, Morris said. A moment came and went, the man staring absently into the distance until he turned to Morris again. "Have you seen the fire?" he said. "The fire?" Morris turned toward the man whose clothes were covered in a sort of filth. What was once white cloth sat stained by dirt, a faint odor rising from the garb, pine needles once green clinging to his hair, trapped within its curling grasp. "I haven't seen it," Morris said. "You will," he said, nodding slightly. He pointed toward the rope. "Some kind of project you're working on?" he said. Morris glanced at the rope, then back to the man. "Something like that." There came an odd look upon the man's face that could not be placed. "You trying to hang something?" he said. Morris said nothing as he looked into the distant mountain. The man smiled, all tension and teeth. "Not much of a talker, are you? Just can't think of much to say." There came a steady wind, the air cooling about them. "That's all right. We all move at our own pace," the man said. "I wasn't too much of a talker until recently. The constant in this world is change, after all. Always and forever." The man smiled wide and further as he continued, a strain that seemed to pull at the back of his throat. "I get the sense that you and I are much the same," he said, "one lost soul to another." The man held Morris in his gaze, all the laughter drained from his face. He leaned in so close that whatever distance had been between them on the metal bench was gone, and it seemed for a moment as if all the world had faded away, leaving just them. He stretched out his hand to Morris. "The name's Lancia," he said. He looked into the face of the man who sat next to him, then he shook the hand. "Morris." Lancia smiled again. "Ain't that a name? A real martyr's name, that's for sure." The man laughed at a joke not made before coughing into his hand the sound of shifting phlegm. He patted his chest as he continued to clear his throat until the air scraped back into his lungs in long, slow gasps of a man yet to die. Lancia swallowed what was in his throat. Nothing more was said. As the sun continued to lower in the sky, the once light shade of blue taking now on a yellow-orange hue that streaked through the rising night, and as the colors darkened, Lancia began to grow agitated. What started as no more than a twitch, a few fingers tapping upon a thigh, soon took on a heightened character. His sweat seemed to seep from all the pores of his skin, not so much in agitation as excitement, from a place so far deep within himself that it exuded through his bones to the flesh above. Lancia turned back to Morris. "Where are you off to this evening, if you don't mind me asking?" "Home." The man placed his hand beneath his chin as if in thought. "Home's a fine place to go after a daylight's jaunt," Lancia said. "No journey worth its wander went on forever, that's for sure. But don't you feel something's missing? That something's not quite right with this world?" Lancia leaned forward. We moved toward a direction where the destination is known, but the path lay in murk, a weight upon one's shoulders from birth. "Do you know of what I speak? Have you not felt it all your life?" Morris made to shift away, but no more bench remained. Lancia smiled all too wide, sliding ever closer until barely a distance lay between. "Sure you do," he said. "It's always been there. There's no invention in this world, just discovery. All it takes is the right question." "So do you know the question? Or do you need to hear it?" "Maybe I should." Lancia gripped his shoulder, his eyes bloodshot and wet. "It must be asked," he said. "There's no running from this. I really think I should." The man reached forward with both hands and grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. "Have you seen the fire?" he said. "Have you seen who resides within?" His eyes sat level, and within those darkened orbs, Morris saw himself reflected atop the pupils in what remained of the dying light. Morris opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came. What could a man say to this? Understood or not, what truth within the man's words endured, a weight growing upon his own shoulders. Lancia held him with arms like iron, unable to get away even if he dared to try. And as the moment lengthened further, there came inside Morris a burning pain which no words could describe. And when it felt as if it all might end within this moment, all his life, the breath being squeezed out of his lungs, Lancia smiled again. He released him. Morris remained in his confusion for only a moment, but by the time his head raised, the man was already across the street. The officer did not look up at Lancia as he passed, stuck within a conversation only they could hear, and when Morris rose as if to follow, the bus finally came, and by the time it was parked, the man was gone. He looked for a moment at the place Lancia had once been, toward the door before him, his hand held tight against the rope. He climbed through its mouth, and onward the bus rolled. Maybe a little more time. He looked again to the world beyond the window, now shrouded under a veil of dark. All but the mountain lay under blackened cloud as what light there was descended low behind its stone peak. And as the great vehicle of rust and steel pulled to a stop, the world seemed to slouch into slumber. He stepped down from the metal stairs and onto that drying mud, and the bus stopped for only a moment before continuing onward. He gazed upon his home, hands steady on the rope. He walked alone up the darkened slope where the trees hung like jagged teeth. Nothing had changed, and he who had expected it to was a fool. On the table still lay the cardboard box. He felt the weight of papers and staplers and pens and all things that, had they ever carried meaning at all, meant nothing anymore. He returned the items to the box, placing the rope upon the table. Nothing lasts forever. In the corner he found a folding chair covered in dust and grime and pulled open its ungreased hinges, testing its weight underfoot. Once ready, he climbed atop the chair, aluminum bending slightly as he placed his hands onto the rafters. He exerted some weight, then some more. From off the table he grabbed the rope, looping it around the wooden beam so that it coiled like the circles of hell, knotting it tight. And when he was sure it would not slip, he tied the cabled fibers around his neck, pulling the slack tight so that all he felt was cheap cotton stab into his flesh like the silence of all those trees that bleed. There was pain, but only some. He inhaled and attempted to hold inside himself that breath for as long as it would remain, but despite his best efforts, it left as quickly as it came, spewing out his mouth in shortened gasps. One was never ready enough. Looked down at his legs still planted upon the chair and around the room, laying eyes out the window for what felt like the final time, when out the darkness came a light. Faint at first, the red glow crawled slowly across the ground like all those questions left unanswered. The flickering orange and yellow consuming all until the room was seen once more. The light came past the huddled masses of maples and pines and ferns and every manner of flora. Its scarlet tip rose above all without stopping. In all his days upon the earth there had never been such a fire, and even in the state in which he found himself, Morris felt a power to it, a pull, every drop of blood and every pound of flesh, continuing to gaze at its growing mass. He felt himself called in a way that could not be ignored. He removed the rope from around his neck, the cotton scratching upon his flesh like those claws, and he stepped off the chair. He placed the coiled fiber inside the cardboard box and looked again to the window. Red as the new dawn, the color smothered slow across the blackening night until it seemed like the sun itself had risen again. He walked out to the door, toward the flame, and began to move up the hill behind his house. He began to climb, the slope gentle at first, the grade only growing as he approached the light, slowing none for the sticks and moss and leaves that littered the floor of the greenwood. Even a moment's pause was a burden that no life could bear. As the hill continued to rise, an incline that refused to yield, there was something inside Morris that no pain could stall, one that would not cease until the hill crested and the trees lessened, arriving at a clearing where his view of the fire no longer sat obscured. Hundreds of feet in the air and spreading still, what stood before Morris was a pillar of solid flame, so bright that had above him not been the moon and stars, it would have led one to believe it was still day, how unrelenting the light encroached. What danced before his eyes could hardly be imagined, that column of solid crimson that tore through the deepest black, with shadows that ripped across the grounds that the land beneath his feet were the color of copper and seeded flax, rising towards the heavens until it seemed the tower above all the earth. In the center of it all lay crumbling of what someone once called their home. What remained of the roof was stripped away under the immense flame, the shingles of plywood and asphalt that burned through until their singed weight could no longer be sustained, holding upright no more. Roof onto floor, floor onto ground, and as he watched it all collapse in on itself, Morris felt the pull only deepen. But soon came an image for which he struggled to understand. For deep within the fire stood a man, tall as he was thin, the paleness of his skin shining through even the harshest fire, like the skull freshly scalped, the hair upon his head not so much shaved as sliced, each fiber seen from within the pores like festered fleas. His shoulders stood dulled and round. What muscle there was hung lean around his frame, stretched sparse across the bone, as if it felt no pain. And in the center of it all lay those eyes of deepest black, as if looking into the sockets of some deviled jinn who peered about this world with secrets untold. The man in the flame gazed about in a longing that seemed to go beyond words, and his eyes landed upon Morris, letting forth a wicked grin. Even though a small crowd had formed, he pointed towards Morris, opening his mouth as if to speak, but what words were said could not be heard, and as Morris took a closer step, arms rushed out before him. Thank you.
Someone's coming to get us. That one's on.
Can you hear me? Cool.
Can you hear me? Hello, 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 hello. Thank you. Great work.
Thanks.
That's awesome, man. How'd it feel? The fireside chat.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, this is not my first time I practiced today, and my voice is a little parched. But I've told people I used to teach pre-K kids, and the one job that I was an assistant teacher, and the one job the head teacher never removed me from was reading to kids. So I kind of get to dial back in, and I don't get a picture book, which is a bit of a drag, but it's cool. I enjoy doing it.
What jobs were you removed from?
All right, the one that got under my skin the most, it was very emotional. I think I went home and cried afterwards. It wasn't that serious. It wasn't that serious. 4-year-olds need routine, and so they do these morning messages every day. And the first couple weeks, I did these morning messages, being like, oh, here's what we're gonna do today. We got this. This is when nap time is. And then like a couple weeks in, my teacher goes, I just think I'm going to do it now. You've done a great job. I don't know what I did. I still don't know what I did to this day, but it gets to me. I think about it a little. It keeps me up at night. But I did get to read at least 2 picture books a day, so I get to rest pretty assured on that.
Oh my God, I wish I only read 2 picture books a day. Okay.
Yeah,
so let's talk about the other. Let's talk about the picture book. Yeah. Or we can talk more about picture books. I don't know. But okay. So, tell us where you're at with this book. Like, where are the stages?
Yeah.
Where you got left? What you doing?
So at this point, I have been working dutifully on the final chapter. So a couple people know me here. So I worked on my first draft of my novel. Heard a little from my thesis advisor that didn't quite make as much sense as I wanted, and I was like, dang, that stinks. And so I've been working on 2.0 pretty hard. So I have to submit my thesis in like a month. So I'm on the final chapter, but it's not like I just finished it, 1 month ago. I'm a little better than that. So I'm on this 12th chapter of this 2.0 version of my novel. And it's been going well. It breaks my spirit, makes me cry just about every day. It's a lot of work, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I'm on that final chapter, and then I'm hoping you'll read it soon enough, in like a month's time, to have a pretty good version for you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, I guess actually, like, talking about this stuff could be helpful because I think we have a lot of like second-year people in the program, people that are like coming to thesis too. So even just seeing the stages of this kind of like abstract process could be helpful. So what's up with the final chapter? What's the difficulty? What's the problem? What are you trying to accomplish? When was the last time you cried about it?
This morning? Let me think. So the cool part, well, probably the basic difficulty is that this was not the original final chapter I had. It came about with a kind of change to the beginning, which this chapter is not the first chapter. So it's trying to make it match more to the end on the current version of the book because, as you're kind of going through it, I'm sure you've experienced this too, Gabe, you have one idea for the book, and then the book arrives, and it's not at all what you expected, maybe half what you expected. So the current, struggle with the final chapter is just like, how do I finish a thing with an ending that is not the same as the one I thought for sure, like a year or something ago, was going to be the ending. So you're sitting there, where all writers are at some point, like at that blank page. And instead of the weight of something new, it's the weight of something new on top of, I have to end this thing. And you're hoping to do it well, knowing on some level that, like, it's still not going to be great. It just needs to come out. So I am very much at the got to get this thing out, but also while going, but it has to be perfect right now, immediately. No exceptions. So
it doesn't have to be perfect. I just like what I just spent most of my winter break actually essentially like rewriting this book in like a lot of ways, adding 10 pages here, 15 pages here. And this isn't a book I started last year. This is a book someone bought, like someone paid money for already, like 3 years ago. And there's still, like, when you, at each stage of the project, new problems come into relief. There's kind of new pressures on each step. And, like, you really have to figure out what the heck is going on with these people by the time you're going to send it to the printing press.
Right.
So I guess I'll just say, like, anybody, let's talk to someone this afternoon about this, too. But if the blank page ever feels kind of like too daunting or something, like you're gonna have to rewrite it probably.
Yeah.
You know, there's very few pages that I've written have been perfect when they first came out, I guess. You know.
Could I ask you about your work? Okay. I've heard you or someone describe your work as you started out as trying to write a more optimistic novel, and then it became a little more pessimistic, or vice versa, or I've messed that up a little. What I'm really trying to ask is, you start out with one thing. You've had the book made, and then partway through, it becomes another thing. Is that organic? Is it planned? What's that like for you during that process?
Yes, I think like each book, each story, each article or whatever is kind of different, you know? What is the Parker knows this too? Was it the Einstein quote that Saunders mentioned? It's like no problem worth solving occurs on its like original plane or something. Like I forget. I should know this.
We talked about it
before
before.
I talk about it. Yeah. But I think that particularly connects to how I approach like novels mainly too. Short stories, I have like no idea what's going on at any stage of the process. They just kind of end, and they're usually pretty bad. So like I don't really write short stories, you know. Like I stay away from the form. But with the novel, like because you spend so much time in this place with these people that like it sounds kind of hokey, but it's true. It's like you get to know them in ways that surprise you. Like you hope that your characters surprise you. You hope that like even your sentences like surprise you because it makes the writing interesting. So like I guess one example I could talk to with some clarity is the book that I just finished. It started and even was like sold just as this like weird short quixotic story about a dude having a mental breakdown in Michigan and just like washing up in Buffalo, New York. And it's just all about him kind of like finding himself in Buffalo. And that's just all it was. You know, it's the trajectory is pretty basic. It's like sad dude gets happy. And that's what I think a lot of my work ends up being. It's like, how do I get this sad person and make them happy? And in this instance, the answer was like oddly easy. It was like just move him to Buffalo, and like it'll just become.
It's a common life trajectory.
Yeah, and so it kind of just became a little boring. But my editor, when we were so like you sell the thing, and then like it sits in your editor's drawer for a while. It sits in your drawer for a while. We were waiting for like my second book to come out, and then when we decided to like get back into it. My editor was like, you know what, I think we should like try and make this book like really good. And I was like, well, why didn't we do that with the other books? But she kind of put it on, and if we have time, there's like actually some interesting thinking behind this in like publishing and art making. But she was just like, you know what, like let's actually really like try and make this thing as good as it can possibly be. And what that ended up being with this book is like making it kind of like bigger, you know? So it ended up being less a story of a young dude like having kind of funny thoughts and experiences in Buffalo, but it became about a father reflecting on his life. So the first part of the book is this guy. Now the first part of is him in middle age, trying like looking at his son dealing with kind of heartbreak and aimlessness. And it's just trying to figure out like what kind of happened to his life, how he became who he is. And so it's bigger, it's longer. I don't know if it's really good. I don't know if it's better even than it was, but it's bigger.
Right.
You know? There's more stuff happening.
Bigger's bigger. That's what they say in Texas. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Clara.
I think that's an insult.
I don't know. Wait. Oh, but Gabe, I wanted to ask just a little about it because we met up months ago in Prospect Park one time, and we were chatting about our books at the time. And you had mentioned that this book was experimental, right, as you were going through. Is that also a thing you intended as you were working on, or is that another pops up organically through the process?
I don't know. I guess like the kind of clearest way I can answer that is I don't want to write. I'm pretty attached to the idea of not writing the same book twice. And I don't know how smart that is. Definitely not from like a career. It's really bad career advice. Like the kind of the best thing you can do for your career as a writer is to, if you write one book that like people seem to really like, is just try and write that book over and over again.
That's how John Grisham did it.
It's how John Grisham does it. It's how like John Irving did it. The Johns are like really good at this. But like even I'm thinking like even someone like Walter Mosley, like there's a reason that you end up with these long kind of like Tom Clancy series, like private investigator series. It's like, here's a character, here's them in this world, and you just stick with it for a while. I think that because my first book was very like traditional in like a just coming of age sense, that I just didn't want to do it again. So like my second book's like a lot different. This one is, and I feel like there's kind of limits to the worlds I want to inhabit, like the stories I want to tell, and a lot of the experimentations happening in like form and like storytelling. But then like I think that's making it sound too complicated. Like again, they're mostly just about like dudes trying to get happy. Yeah. Again, so I don't think the form changes a little bit. And I remember the recent conversations with my editor, like her comments, maybe I'll share them with some of you guys. Like they were really funny because some of them are just her like begging for help. She's like, hey, like I like don't understand what you're saying here. Like it's just, you have to tell me what's happening. And it's not like she's like the smartest person I know. And it's just like it wasn't working what I was trying to do. And there are just long sections where she's just total confusion. And it's good to be kind of pulled back. So I guess
Got it. So you're the John Grisham of sad men trying to be happy. Got it.
Okay. So actually, so you're almost done with the program. You're going to get kicked out pretty soon.
Pretty soon.
You have to leave. So what are you planning on for other people that are on the precipice of being kicked out and forced into society? What are you thinking?
Let's see. I think, my parents are here, so what I should say is I'm going to get a job, and then I'm going to earn money, and it's going to pay rent, which I've never done before. That's not true. My landlords would kick me out. But okay, so what am I?
So you're going to go to law school 5 years ago.
Law school 5 years ago, and then I'm going to buy property 30 years ago, and it's all going to go swimmingly. But, so, I mean, that is kind of, in all reality, that is kind of the terrifying question of, like, what happens next. Because being an MFA is pretty sick. You just get to write all day, and you get to teach sometimes. Sometimes a little more of this, sometimes a little more of that. I guess the two things I'm practically thinking, there's like teaching. I've applied to some PhD programs. My hope, I don't know what will happen in the short term. I don't know if you guys know, but the economy's pretty bad out there. So in a longer run sense, I would like to end up in an environment where I can just keep writing. Now, if I'm working a 9 to 5, that might mean an hour or two here and there. If it's like adjuncting at some community college, I'm looking at some community college teaching on top of that. It might mean more time, but certainly less stability. But in a longer run sense, it's like I signed up for this thing to write forever, if I could, or until I die, whichever comes first. So it's really, the job is just a way to keep doing this, and then the house is just a way to keep doing this, and like Virginia Woolf said, of like to find a room of one's own. But in practical terms, it's like get a job. That would maybe mean adjuncting or teaching, potentially in New York City. Maybe Mom Bonnie will hire me personally. Or get into a PhD. We'll see what happens there. But still, I got rejected from Denver. We can take a round of applause for that. But I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple others.
Who wants to live in Denver? It's actually it's fine. Yeah, it's a nice place.
I just heard an article. It's like all the liberal. No, sorry. All people who live on the coast, like California, New York, just are moving to Denver, and the economy can't keep up. We don't have to talk about that, but people are moving to Denver.
Palantir is in Denver. I think. Could work for Palantir. Okay. Okay. I guess. Do you guys have questions for us? We're kind of just talking. I mean, like, honestly, questions about anything.
Yeah. Well, actually, I do have something about that. My professor Gabe Bump did call me a brilliant writer on Instagram, so it does feel pretty cool. If I gotta say, it does feel pretty cool. Think so. I can walk up with a microphone. Does anyone have a question?
I think we could hear. Yeah.
Matt, you can just shout. Just go for it. Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you were asking, like, you just thought you're so kind of right. No. Yeah.
That's a very excellent question, Matt. Thank you. Wait, I think there might be some people that aren't in like the MFA program here. They're just like, what is happening? Okay. So actually, Nate, I'm curious to So.
Oh yeah.
How have you
Boy,
changed?
oh boy. I mean, I think the easier way to talk about is writerly influences. I mean, I don't think they go away per se. I mean, when I was before I got into the program, I was like 18 or 19 as an undergrad. I was very, very predictable white boy. I loved David Foster Wallace. He was my guy. Didn't really read his fiction, so it's kind of like that kind of. I liked his nonfiction. I was a big fan of his nonfiction. So here I am, like trying to copy a guy who I hadn't really read that much, which is just very predictable.
That's very funny.
Right? Yeah. So when I left undergrad, I was influenced heavily by the whole Lish crew, which. Editor, he did Barry Hannah and stuff like that. And then I started reading Raymond Carver. And so I think when I walked into UMass, I love Raymond Carver, which is also like, I don't know, it's like saying your favorite poet's like Robert Frost. It's like, no one can take it from you, but, it's not that idiosyncratic. So I wanted to be like Raymond Carver kind of mixed with Gogol. Those are like the two things I wanted to do. Which means to say like short stories and some kind of minimalism. With a bit of a weird binge to it. But then about a couple years in, and this is where I'm going to get some groans, I had read Cormac McCarthy like 10 years ago. Yeah, don't laugh already. And then I started rereading him again in the program. It was close to when his new books come out. And so I've shifted more to a sort of maximalism, I guess. That'd be the big thing. So really what I understood is I don't know anything about myself. And in a couple years' time, I'll probably have changed everything I say.
Yeah, you know some things about yourself.
A few things.
the idea of someone really loving, like being a David Foster Wallace bro without reading David Foster Wallace is like really funny. Just like liking the vibes.
It's really like the interviews.
Yeah, just like the energy. Let's see. For me, well, I don't know. It's kind. I guess I was kind of touching on this earlier. I had this really weird experience in the program, which I think is just not even luck. It's just what happened. I came in the first couple semesters. I had written like most of my first book, and it's just like weird happenstance. Like there's no real, there's no real unlock to that or something. It just kind of happened because sometimes you're just like hot streaks, like just coincide with certain moments. And then for the rest of the next 2 years, I really kind of struggled to finish the book. Like I had started the book really hot. It was there. It kind of appears just as I first wrote it. Like in my first book, and the second part I couldn't get right for like 3 or 4 years, like after graduating. And so I felt like I spent most of the program trying to figure out like who I was, like as a writer and like as a person. And maybe this is because like, I remember this distinctly. It was by the time Thanksgiving came around, my first semester here, I had realized it was the longest I'd ever spent away from home, away from Chicago. And the first half of my book is like, it's just all in Chicago. Like it's just very much there. And I think is like the longer I went home for Thanksgiving and then would just go back more sporadically. And maybe I think it was that sense of not being grounded in a place. There's something that was kind of hard, or something I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, especially the place you're grounded so much in that like you're writing about before you like come here, and then suddenly like you're in grad school away from your support system. I know that's not the same for everybody, but that was just my experience. And so, but the writer I am now, I think is like really different just on a sentence level, which is maybe strange. Like when I read Everywhere You Don't Belong, there's a lot of that stuff like I would never write again. Like I would probably write everything differently. There's maybe a few pages here and there that would probably be the same, but I can't say that for everything else I've written, but there's just something about the kind of voice of that is just so different than how I write now. And I think some of it's like maturation too. Like I was 23 when I came here, and it was just kind of like an idiot. I don't know, like the way most 23-year-olds are, the way that most like 35-year-olds are. And so I feel like it's still kind of growing. And I guess when I was talking about how this book that I just finished has changed, I think a lot of the changes in that book are like changes that like I've undergone. Like so the first draft of that, most of it was put together when I was just living in Buffalo, barely employed, kind of going through like a slow breakup, but like just didn't really have any, like there was nothing at stake in my life, right? Like I could just be a dude that was like writing every day. It was pretty sick. It was pretty awesome. And even though like I wouldn't, go back there, but like as my life went on and coming back to visit it, like I've just been writing a ton about fatherhood because it's literally like all I'm thinking about. I wake up, it used to be I woke up in the morning and I just went to a coffee shop and I wrote for like an hour, 2 hours. That was my morning for like 10 years. Like it was just what I did, nonstop. And now, like I wake up at 6:30 and like maybe look at my phone, maybe like play on my like chess app for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then like my son is like, wheels on the bus go round and round, and like I have to feed him, and like I have to change his diaper, and I have to take the dogs out, and I have to make sure my wife is okay with the baby, and then I have to like wrestle with a 2-year-old to like take off his Paw Patrol pajamas, and so I just can't think of anything else. It's just my life, and so I'm writing a lot about it. And the sentences come out differently, I think. And so, I guess like one to just wrap that thought up is that I feel like embracing those changes actually really helped me as a writer. Like it has made me not undergo some kind of like artistic crisis. Because like what is around me? What's the world I'm facing right now? And how do I like digest it? using art.
Thanks, man. Any more questions? Go for it, Twain. Twain, you're so good at asking questions. I have no idea how to answer. You got an answer to start that, or? Thanks, I appreciate that. I mean, I think it's kind of like a simple question that has a lot of really deep and profound applications, and it's something we talk about. As most of us here have taught in the writing program in some capacity, and we always teach like author writes text and text writes to audience. But who the audience member is an abstract question. So you sometimes can literalize it. I think the easiest answer for every writer is to say another version of themselves. But to some extent, that's also completely untrue. I mean, if you do write just for yourself, and I mean solely, exclusively, inside jokes, insular language, it just ends up being a novel for nobody in some capacities. So it's a person like you, I suppose. But then, I like Faulkner. There's no way Faulkner wrote for me. There's certainly, we could even go further and crazier, like Gogol, who I mentioned previously, a Russian speaker from Ukraine who wrote in the 1830s, amongst other times, in a different language, and yet he writes for me, and I have to, I don't, sort of, who do I have in mind for an audience? I don't know. I wish I could tell you they look like this, and they sound like this, and they read like this, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't write for anyone. It's like I'd like to write a book where if you're willing to sit with it, and let it wash over you, that it is for you in some capacity, at least a little bit. So I guess they're kind of like me, but hopefully they're also a little better than me too. Well, if you want to pick up this novel, Twain.
Anyone who's better than me, I like that too. That's nice. Yeah, I think every project ends up serving a different audience. I think I really wanted my brother and his friends and my friends to really like my first book. I wanted to be funny and make them out, and they liked it. They don't read books, and they liked it. And yeah, I think that kind of moving target serves me well. It's not just who is this book for? This one is definitely for dudes in their late 20s and 30s who don't buy books. So that's just my audience for this book doesn't read. That's interesting. And yeah, and but there's broader, that's in a more very just specific, on the page kind of way. I do think I try to write for people that like good sentences, like kind of pretty sentences, kind of emotional work. I feel I oftentimes kind of make myself cry when I'm reading something that I've written. And that's not, it doesn't really fit my personality, but I feel it does fit the place where I'm writing from. I really try and pull out emotions in anything I like, and if people like that stuff, I think they'll like my book. And even when I'm kind of say that this one is for dudes in their late 20s and 30s, it's actually just for, I don't even know, imagine anyone that's kind of felt lost at any point in their life. There's a lot about kind of connection with parents in place. I think my parents will like it. The mom and dad in that dinner scene, those aren't my parents at all. My parents are actually very nice, quiet people who are overly nice and overly supportive, and they're kind of anxious about being rude. names are Tom and Debbie, and so it's like the parents of that, and like so they're and the book's dedicated for my dad. So I just hope they like laugh at that. Like there's like small things, like small kind of goals that like I never imagine any broad readership, but I do hope that the people that I know that read whatever I write will kind of like it. We'll get something out of it. We'll get some kind of small joke or something.
Well, actually, there's a little follow-up to that. Have you ever? I've tried before to imagine someone who I could like to imagine everyone all at the same time, and it is kind of hell on earth to be like, who is this random person? What does the person from Idaho think? What does the person from et cetera think? And this background or that background or just different philosophies, and it's like I can find it sometimes destructive to think of the audience too much. I don't know if that's how you feel, Gabe, but like to try, since it is an abstract process, it can feel destructive to think too abstractly about delivering it to this person.
So I get like I'm spoiled in some ways. Like I've had really smart, just readers who I've been in total service to, like for most of my career. Like I guess in just a really practical way. Like if my editor likes it, I trust that it's good, and I guess that's one way to think of an audience. I don't fight her on anything. Like if anything, I just always work on clarifying what she means. Right? She's trying to clarify what I'm doing. I'm trying to clarify what she wants me to do, and it's this really, really close. I mean, we've been working together for almost 10 years. Really, really close relationship. Same like my agent is like if my agent doesn't like something, I know it's bad. But like if my agent or if my editor likes something, I know it's like good and like working. If that makes sense, like I trust Alexa to be like the barrier for like get the hell out of here. And then even like before that, when I was here, like if Parker liked it, like I thought that was like a good sign. Yeah. Like if Parker dug it, I think Parker has like even talked me out of some things, and I listened to him. Like now people can like talk me out of things.
It's good to listen to Parker.
Yeah, you gotta listen to Parker. It'll serve you right. So yeah, and then like thinking of audience and that kind of next, like who's gonna help me get this out in the world. I mean, you really have to trust these people. I don't know. Like you just hear all these horrible stories about people ending up just with publishing houses because they gave solely because they gave them like kind of the most money, the most like prestige, the bigger size, or agents because they like had some kind of name. Like you just really have to work with people that you trust like artistically. It's all just kind of pointless. Okay. Is that it? Don't mess up. There's a lot. There's like a lot writing on this. I think.
Hence the tears.
Well, you did a really good job with him. It was really great. And I think that I think that what you mentioned earlier, Nate, I think was really true. Is like just appreciating how fortunate. When you are to like be here, but then like I don't know how fortunate like all you guys are to one like be here, but then also to like have just kind of writing, right? In your life, you can do this like really amazing thing. Like all you guys are here because you just have this like capacity to do this really beautiful and amazing thing, and we're just here to support you with that for 3 years. And I think like, well, one I think teaching is just a concrete, probably like just teaching. Good profession, always hiring teachers, AI proof.
For now.
If you can get in a good union, Massachusetts, great place to be a teacher. So I think like taking that seriously is maybe the only concrete thing I say, but no, read a lot, write a lot.
It's good advice. Yeah.
Let's see.
Is that all? Everything? Thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah.